Pedro De Vasconcelos. I'm the manager of a program, the financing facility for remittances, that deals with the issue of remittances, migration, and development here at IFAD. So IFAD has been working on this issue now for over a decade, and I will introduce a little bit of that work as we go. So what I was saying in terms of the importance of the flows, $500 billion, 230 million people concerned in the planet sending these remittances. 1 out of 10 people in the world linked to remittances. So that's a big headline, if I may, for the purpose of this meeting. Why is it important? Why is it so important for IFAD? When you enter the building, you might have seen up there, investing in rural people. Well, 40% of these flows that I just mentioned, the financial flows go to rural areas. Areas where these funds matter the most, where they have the biggest impact. Now, there's some problems related to that. One is maybe something that you already heard, is cost. It's very expensive to send that money back home. It is less expensive today than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that's for sure. 5 years ago, this money, $200 on average, will cost you 20% to send back home. And these are people that cannot just wait and send this after 3 months, or can send $1,000 at a time. They just don't have it. The families are depending on it. So they have no choice about that schedule. Is once a month on average, or 10 times a year on average, actually. And it's $200. And you would be charged 20% to do that. So you might say that it's outrageous, and you would be right. And I think that was the worldwide reaction to this. However, the companies that were doing that, or the systems that were transferring that money, were responding to just a lack of service. There was no service doing that. So the Western Union, the MoneyGrams, were doing this at a premium, or informal channels. So in some cases, they're called Hawala systems, Hindu systems, which basically says it's a very informal mechanism that if you know somebody on the other side of the border, well, these people will agree, and the remittances will be paid on the other side. That causes some problems, of course, for money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, and so on issues. So, of course, it's something that we're trying not to promote. You're trying to promote the advantages on the formal side. So the issues are there, and the cost has been a major concern, to the extent that actually G8 and G20 countries have been trying to tap on bringing the cost of remittances to 5% from that 20%. Did they achieve that? Well, not really, but they almost got there. So the cost has come down. But what is the real next issue between costs? Access. I said that 40% of the flows go to rural areas, but this is just a share that doesn't really translate the difficulties. It takes more than just a fee to go get that cash. People, particularly in rural areas, need to leave what they're doing. If that is a job, or if that's taking care of the kids, they need to stop that, take 1-day trip or bus to go get their remittances, normally even spend the remittances there buying the goods that they need, and then come back. So easily you have 2 days in there. That's also the opportunity cost that is not accounted for in that fee. So access to remittances, what we call the last mile, is a major issue in rural areas of the developing world. So this is another big problem that needs to be. But if you solve the issue of the cost, if you solve the issue of the access, then you have an additional issue, which is once these remittances now are received and are in hand, they're still cash. A lot of people said, or a lot of governments were thinking, well, it's consumption. Consumption has its good, because a lot of these people buy food, clothes, pay their bills with this. This is very productive. Maybe sometimes they might get a bigger TV than you should think, but hey, we all do our rational decisions. The point here is that the lack of formal financial services is the major issue. A lot of this is cash. And we started thinking, the development community overall, thinking, well, if only you could link some of this with financial services like savings, credit, insurance, housing, all these things that we know could, at the end of the day, support the goal of the migrant itself. Let's not forget again that this is economic migration. This is not migration of the beginning of the last century where people migrated in families, in bags, wave goodbye to their families on the boat and never come back. We're talking about a different type today. It's a family member. Unfortunately, there's a social fracture attached to it. You have families that are broken in many cases because the father or the mother had to leave and is sending remittances. They're talking much more often thanks to the telephone and internet and so on. So it's not really about letters anymore. They're very aware of what's happening, but it's also very difficult. Very difficult. And the main issue is that you do that sometimes on an emergency purposes. I need to sustain my family. So I'm going to take sometimes a lot of risks to try to have some better conditions to earn some money and be able to support my family. I don't need to say all the very tragic stories around that particular aspect. You may know where in Italy where many of these have happened. So this is also an additional cost. So the financial inclusion is what we call opportunity that exists with this flow of money, of goods as well, of knowledge, is tremendous. And this is why an institution like IFAD, also with several other partners, has been actively working. It's not about the money that we should throw at this, because it is there. It's about the hand that we can really give in supporting this phenomenon. So remittances and financial inclusion, which is high on the agenda of many governments, is a really important opportunity, because you might have heard the pyramid of financial inclusion, the ones that are not included at the bottom, the included at the top. Well, a lot of the remittances recipients are at the bottom. 80% of them, of the ones that I've been mentioning, are not included in the financial sector. Remittances can really be a bridge to that, and an elevator within that pyramid. And that's why we're trying to work. What does it take? It takes governments inclusion in this. It takes private sector to come up with more competitive environment, basically seeing that there's more business to be done in rural areas. There's business to be done in getting those people that we consider poor and interesting. Well, no, these are clients, these are potential clients. This can be your future middle income in certain of those countries. The civil society needs to understand that the partnering with public sector, civil society can also help. If you do all that, then suddenly you are achieving a lot of developing goals for millions of families that receive these remittances. So this is the whole picture. Now there's very interesting aspects that you can consider on how to achieve that, to get this circle stopped, which I didn't mention at the beginning. We call it the remittances and migration vicious circle. It's pretty simple, but it starts with the lack of economic opportunities that push people to migrate. This generate remittances, and that's when you have two choices. If this is leveraged, or if this is not leveraged. If it's not leveraged, well, remittances go back home. If they're not included into an income generating activity, as I mentioned, they will pay for goods and so on, but it's not going to solve the problem. And future generations will continue to migrate because the conditions at home will not improve. So you have the parents leaving, and you have the children that are already dreaming about leaving. That's not going to solve your problem. In order to solve that circle, you have to leverage. It's difficult to leverage the migration. The aspect that you can leverage is the remittances, is that economic aspect. If you leverage the remittances, you maximize the impact of these remittances from the way that they're channeled or what they are used for, that's where you can have an impact. That's when you can create jobs. Migrants that come back and invest, for instance.